There are moments when no matter how clearly you speak, people still don't understand you. You try to explain with care. You try to be honest. You try to show where you are coming from. But it doesn't always land. And sometimes, you realize, it's not that they can't hear you. It's that they don't want to. That's the most frustrating part. You know your heart is in the right place. You know your intention is honest. You just want to be seen, to be heard, to be understood. But after a while, you start asking yourself, is all this explaining really helping? This is where the Gita gives us something clearer than any argument ever could. There's a line in chapter 3, verse 8, where Krishna says, "Perform your prescribed duty, for action is better than inaction." And if you pause and really listen, you can feel what's behind those words. A gentle reminder, what you do matters more than what you say. Because when Krishna stood on that battlefield, right in the middle of war, ego, justice, fear, he didn't try to impress anyone. He didn't go around delivering speeches. He didn't argue with people who had already made up their minds. He simply chose to act, with clarity, with alignment, and with the quiet strength that comes from knowing your purpose. And maybe that's the lesson we are being asked to remember. Especially when life pushes us into situations where our character is questioned. When someone twists our words. When we are tempted to explain ourselves again and again, hoping it'll fix something. Because the truth is, most arguments don't bring peace. They just bring more noise, more confusion, more mental exhaustion. But action, grounded, thoughtful, steady action, that speaks more clearly than anything else. Krishna didn't justify himself to everyone. He knew that not every heart is ready to understand. And still, he moved forward. He guided Arjuna. He stayed rooted in dharma, not popularity, not pride. There's something deeply powerful about that. Because the moment you stop needing others to agree with you, the moment you stop chasing approval, you return to something quieter and stronger inside yourself. You come back to your path. Just take a moment and think about your own life. How many times have you replayed a conversation in your mind, going over every word, wondering what you should have said differently? Imagining how you could have made them understand you better. It happens to all of us. Sometimes because we want to feel seen. Other times because we are scared of being misjudged. But whatever the reason, it pulls us into the same trap, using all our energy to explain ourselves, instead of living with clarity. And Krishna never did that. Even when the world misunderstood him, even when betrayal, conflict, and silence surrounded him, he didn't use words to defend. He used intention. When Draupadi was insulted in full view of the court, Krishna didn't argue with those who had lost their way. He didn't try to debate with people who had closed their hearts. He simply acted. Quietly, carefully, without any noise. He protected. He prepared. And when the time came, he moved. Not for applause. Not for recognition. But because it was the right thing to do. And that's what clarity looks like. It doesn't always talk. It doesn't always explain. Sometimes, it just moves and lets the action speak for itself. There's a kind of quiet strength in that. When you choose to live by your values, even when no one is watching. When you do what's right, not because others agree, but because you know it's true. And when truth is lived, not just spoken, it becomes visible without explanation. You can see it in how someone walks into a room. in how they treat people, in how they carry themselves when no one is paying attention. That's the power of living in alignment. So when Krishna tells Arjuna, action is better than inaction, he isn't just talking about doing something physical. He's reminding us that movement rooted in clarity is far more valuable than standing still in fear or noise. Because there will always be people who don't understand you. There will always be those who question your choices, your timing, your voice, no matter how sincere your heart is. But that doesn't mean you have to explain everything. You don't need to reply to every comment. You don't need to fix every misunderstanding. Sometimes, your calm presence says more than your defense ever could. And sometimes, your consistent actions reveal more about who you are than any explanation ever will. But let's be honest, it's not always easy. When someone misjudges you, it's natural to want to clear your name. You feel that pull to speak up, to correct the story, to say, that's not who I am. But that's where ego sneaks in. Not the loud ego, but the quiet one. The one that still wants to be seen as right, as good, as worthy. And Krishna invites us to go deeper than that. He asks, what's driving you in this moment? Is it your truth, or your need to be understood? Because there's a kind of peace that comes when you stop needing to be understood by everyone. A peace that comes when you realize your energy is better spent walking your path than explaining it. The world will always have noise. People will always have opinions. But your job isn't to convince them. Your work is to stay close to your dharma, to your inner compass, to your purpose, and let your life speak quietly, but powerfully. That's what Krishna did, time and again. So the next time you feel that urge to explain yourself, to defend your timing, your decision, your way of living, take a breath. Ask yourself, will this bring clarity, or just more noise? And if it's noise, then step back. Not because you've given up, but because you are choosing alignment over argument. Return to your work. Return to your peace. Because the people who are meant to understand you, they'll see it, eventually. And those who never do, they were never really listening to begin with. So let your path speak. Let your actions lead. Let your silence hold your strength. And when in doubt, remember what Krishna said. Action is better than inaction. That one line can carry you through 100 storms. Because when you live from that space, not to be approved, but to be aligned, something changes. Your presence starts to speak louder than your words ever could. And in the end, that's what real power looks like. It doesn't argue. It doesn't shout. It just walks and lets the world catch up.